attorney for Jacksonville State. Can you just tell everybody out there what some of the possible criminal consequences are of hazing?
Alabama law makes hazing per se a misdemeanor. It doesn't make any distinction. It just says it is a misdemeanor. It's a Class C misdemeanor. But then it goes on to say that if that statute in no way is intended to abrogate any other criminal laws. So if you get into a situation of physical hazing, there are assault statutes. Mm-hmm. In fact, the old road trip where a pledge may be grabbed and carried out into the country, you can have kidnapping. The assault can actually rise to the level of a felony. So it runs the gamut from potentially from a Class C felony Class C misdemeanor all the way up to a felony offense.
In the situation at Florida A&M University, where 26-year-old university band member Robert Champion was allegedly hazed to death by his band members, is it a possibility that could be considered a murder charge?
Absolutely. Murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide in Alabama. It could be any of those.
Dr. Meehan, I want to get your professional opinion. Dr. James Ammons, who is the president of Florida A&M University, where this hazing incident allegedly, where the students who attended this university, where this alleged hazing incident took place. As a university president, what advice would you give to Dr. Ammons if you all had a chance to sit in a room together and he said, Dr. Meehan, how do I handle this situation? How do I go about this? I need your advice.
Dr. Ammons and I are friends. He serves on the NCAA board and presidential advisory group with me, and I've expressed my sympathy for that family and what he is, and the faculty members and staff and students are having to go through at Florida A&M. He's a very accomplished administrator, a great faculty member, and doesn't need my advice. But he's doing the right things, which is investigating it and following up on it. That's very unfortunate. Those type of situations, Ed, could happen anywhere. It could happen right here at Jacksonville State University. We're very fortunate that it hasn't, but it can anytime this type of activity gets out of hand. That's why we're against it.
Why do you think students don't want to report these criminal acts that are being committed against them? Just because I know
it's the same. It's behavior. Dr. Turner probably can address it much better than I can because she's a sociologist. But people don't want. They want to be part of the group. They don't want to report it because they're afraid of being ostracized or criticized by the group. It's a self-perpetuating activity because I had it done to me. I want to do it to someone else. And it, again, as I said, it doesn't create any better brotherhood or sisterhood within the organization, but it has to be stopped. I'll tell you this, that it comes in all forms and shapes and sizes. It's just humiliating someone on the lowest level by making them wear something that may be inappropriate or out and very casual, and it can rise to the physical abuse as well. None of it is good. None of it makes that individual a better person for being part of the group.
And one thing, and this is nothing that I have never said with the privacy of my own friends or my associates, even my family, the way I see it, a lot of people see this behavior as being acceptable and they say it's okay, and then when the media comes knocking at their door asking them what happened, they go running. Or when the police having a warrant for their arrest, they want to go running. So obviously there is something wrong with it. And the way I feel is that before you begin to commit these kinds of rituals or these acts, some people call them traditions, the way I see it, I don't think people think about the consequences that could come afterwards. In the case of the incident at Florida A&M University, these people who were allegedly involved are now national attention. They're on CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS. I'm sure never in a million years did they imagine that they would be on national television with possible criminal charges coming against them. And I guess the way I see it, once people start thinking about it in that manner, would you really want to go to jail for this if something happened to this student? would you really want the possibility of you being thrown out of school? And I guess when people start thinking like that, they say, don't know if this is such a good idea. Don't know if this ritual, this tradition is okay. Growing up, were any of you all's friends in college hazed? And if so, how did it make you feel, and what advice did you give to them as how to handle it?
Well, I think probably all of us in the times that we grew up participated in that type of thing and were hazed. I can tell you that I was, and through my organization, a fraternity. But unfortunately, they have stopped that type of activity, and it's very uncomfortable. And I can see how it's self-perpetuating. But the way to have someone think about it is, would you want that done to yourself? Would you want that done to your child or another individual that's a friend of yours? And what value comes out of that? So using that as a litmus test, that's what individuals need to think of. The long-term repercussions are severe. You can't go back. And the examples you just gave are horrific and very, very unfortunate.
And one thing that I know for sure that my life continues to teach me day in and day out is that anything bad, anything that has no value, no true, genuine purpose will eventually be stopped. Unfortunately, this situation had to end with the death of a student, but I'm always a believer that God comes in, he will stop a situation, even if it has to end tragically. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Time and time again, my life has shown me that things happen for a reason. Everything happens in its right time. And I do not believe that Robert Champion died in vain. I do believe that the justice system will go after these alleged criminals. And when I saw his parents, I could just only imagine that could be anybody's parents. That could be my parents. And to see his mother and his father standing up there, having to grieve the death of their child because of the senseless recklessness and negligence of somebody else, of other people, it breaks my heart to the core, because Robert Champion could have easily been a friend of mine. 26 years old, I have 26-year-old friends. Robert could have easily been a student here that I knew. And I always tell people, people always tell me, well, this is just how it is, and this is just how things are. And, people know what they're getting into when they sign up for this. I said, okay, let's say that's the case. Let's say that they know what they're getting into when they sign up for this. Okay, bottom line is, as you all have said, it's illegal. Fine about it being tradition, fine about being a ritual, it's just something that's been done. Okay, it's illegal. There are a lot of things that are tradition that are illegal. It was tradition for slaves to be cooped up in some stranger's house for hundreds of years. But guess what? That had to be stopped too.
And, we're an institution that educates people, young people, and people of all ages, and we develop leaders. The purpose of this institution is to develop leaders that are open-minded, that can make a difference and change things from the status quo. So I hope people will realize that. They're here to make a difference for the future. And they can do it right in their organizations right now. If they have a tradition of that, it needs to stop.
And I doubt anyone joins a fraternity, a sorority, a band organization because they know there's a tradition of hazing or abuse of another person. They don't join for that reason. They join for the camaraderie. They join to develop networks that will help them later on in life. They don't go into those organizations thinking that they're going in because there's behavior in there that's negatively inflicted against another human being. I don't believe they do that. So I think the consequences of what happens when that kind of behavior, the hazing behavior, is exhibited, are far greater than, and it's a surprise to everyone. you asked Dr. Meehan, you asked us earlier, why don't people report or speak up if they're victims of hazing? And I think fear is one factor. And it's part of that, the victim's psyche becomes such that, they don't know really what to do with that information. They'd like to report it, but they are afraid for their safety, and they're afraid that they might be harmed even further. And that's another reason why it has to be stopped, because it leads to no positive outcome.
That's exactly right. As Provost Turner had said, the victims are not only the people that have been abused, the victims are also those that are doing the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
As Judge Monk has said, now they'll have criminal penalties for them if they're caught and if it's imposed.
And it's not just fraternities. We see this.
No.
We see this in all social stratas, in all walks of life. Abuse tends to become cyclic. We know that. The psychologists can tell you that. We see it every day. And not only does it become cyclic, but what I saw for so many years on the bench, and we see with these hazing incidents, is there's a group mentality that develops. There's a group dynamic where, as a group, people will do things that they would not think of doing individually. And as they go into that mindset, so to speak, I think they lose sight of the potential for severe harm. And that's probably what we saw at FAMU. It's what we see in a lot of these hazings, it's the law of unintended consequences. They do not intend to kill someone. They do not intend to maim them. They do not intend to put them in a hospital. But it happens. And it's reckless. It's reckless misconduct as opposed to perhaps intentional misconduct when you look at what the outcome is.
And I want to make it very clear, like I said, I'll say this many times throughout the show, I am not a member of any fraternity or any organization, anything of that nature. I may not know anything about those organizations, but I do know the difference between right and wrong. And I know that is wrong. I would not dare in a million years let somebody put their hands on me and tell me that it is okay. This is how things are done. First of all, I'm a broadcaster, so I have to be on television one day. I don't want my face getting messed up because I called myself trying to be a part of some group, a group of people who I probably won't even speak to in the next couple of years. I won't even know any of those people. And so that's one huge reason, because I don't want my face to get messed up. And my health is all I have. If my health is destroyed, and I even read some of the reports from Robert Champion's autopsy, they said he had severe tissue damage that was similar to that of torture and child abuse. No, that's not okay. And there's not a word in the English vocabulary that you can speak to me that can justify that type of behavior.
Yeah, Ed, you're absolutely right. And it's a shame because these organizations, whether it's the band at Florida A&M or any of the organizations at JSU or any college or university, they're valuable tools for helping develop leadership and fulfilling the service projects that the institution have in mind. And they take away from that experience.
They do.
And that's very unfortunate because those are all good organizations. We're talking about the Student Government Association or any others. They all add value to the student's experience. That type of behavior that we've discussed here, known as hazing, detracts from it.
If you questioned any of these kids who participate in hazing, and I say kids because I'm old enough to say that.
Yes, sir.
If you question any of them, if you put an example on the table, is it right to be admitted into a gang that you be beat down into the gang? And they'd say, well, no, that's not right. But at the same time, you ask them about hazing, well, that's okay. So it's a mindset that we've got to change. It's always been a wink and a nod when it comes to hazing. I came through this college, graduated here in 1969. I participated in it. I was the victim of it. And at that time, it was sort of a macho thing because it was coupled with ROTC.
Yes, sir.
And there were no fraternities on campus except at the end of my tenure here. But it was, I made it through it, and then we made sure that the next year we got to participate in it on the other side. But again, it was actually sanctioned. We had actually faculty advisors that went with us